Hello and welcome back to EverlastCyber. In today's video, we'll be going through some practice questions and answers for the Palo Alto Certified Network Security Administrator. For the questions we'll be going through, we'll also be explaining the options, and from there you will know the best option to suit the answer that is being asked. So we're starting right off with question 1. When creating a source NAT policy, which entry in the Translated Packets tab will display the options Dynamic IP and Port, Dynamic, Static IP, and None? A. Translation type. B. Interface. C. Address type. D. IP address. In the Translated Packets tab of the Source NAT policy, the Translation Type field provides the options Dynamic IP and Ports, Dynamic, Static IP, and None. You can also see this on the screenshots that has been attached. This field allows you to select the method of NAT translation that will be applied to the source traffic. So this is our answer, but we'll also take a look at the other options. In option B, the interface option specifies the egress interface for the NAT translation, but it doesn't provide the translation options that are mentioned in the question. For option C, address type specifies whether the address is an IP address or an IP range, but it doesn't offer the translation options. In option D, in IP address, this is where the specific IP address or range for NAT translation is specified, but it doesn't offer the translation type options. So with respect to the options, we know that our answer is option A, translation type, because even the screenshot attached shows the options that were mentioned in the question. Question 2. At which stage of the cyber attack lifecycle will the attacker attach an infected PDF file to an email? A. Delivery. B. Reconnaissance. C. Command and control. D. Exploitation. In the delivery stage of the cyber attack lifecycle, this involves the attacker delivering the malware or exploits to the target system. They attack an infected PDF file to an email, and this is a classic example of the delivery phase. So in this phase, the attacker is attempting to get the malicious file to the intended victim. The reconnaissance phase involves gathering information about the target, but it doesn't deliver the malware. In the command and control stage, this occurs after the target has been compromised and involves establishing a connection to control the infected system. And the exploitation stage involves exploiting a vulnerability on the target system, typically after the malicious file has been delivered and opened. So with respect to the question asked, the stage where the attacker attaches an infected PDF file to an email is option A, the delivery stage. Question 3. Which user ID mapping method should be used for an environment with users that do not authenticate to Active Directory? A. Windows Session Monitoring. B. Passive Server Monitoring using the window-based agent. C. Captive Portal. D. Passive Server Monitoring using a PAN-OS integrated user ID agent. In the Windows Session Monitoring, this requires users to authenticate to Active Directory and monitors Windows login events, so it would not work if users do not log into Active Directory. Remember, in the question it states that users do not authenticate to Active Directory. In option B, this relies on users authenticating to Active Directory, and it works by monitoring Active Directory login events. The captive portal is used in environments where users do not authenticate to Active Directory or when other user ID mapping methods are not feasible. The captive portal prompts users to authenticate through a web page when accessing the network, and this allows the firewall to identify the user even though they are not logged into Active Directory. Option D is similar to option B, but this also depends on Active Directory login events to identify users. So with respect to the question, our answer is option C, the captive portal. It will prompt the users to authenticate through a web page when they are accessing the network, and it allows the firewall to identify the user even though they are not logged into Active Directory. Question 4. Which plane on a Palo Alto Networks firewall provides configuration, login, and reporting functions on a separate processor? A. Management. B. Network processing. C. Data. D. Security processing. The management plane handles configuration, logging, and reporting. The network processing plane manages the flow of network traffic. The data plane inspects and processes actual data traffic, while the security processing plane focuses on security-related functions and inspections. With respect to the question, it asks the plane where the Palo Alto Networks firewall will provide configuration, logging, and reporting functions on a separate processor. This is found in the management plane. It operates on a separate processor from the data and security processing planes, and it ensures that management tasks do not interfere with the actual traffic processing. Question 5. An administrator needs to allow users to use their own Office applications. How should the administrator configure the firewall to allow multiple applications in a dynamic environment? A. Create an application filter and name it Office Programs, then filter it on the Business Systems category, Office Programs subcategory. B. Create an application group and add Business Systems to it. C. Create an application filter and name it Office Programs, then filter it on the Business Systems category. D. Create an application group and add Office 365, Evernote, Google Docs, and LibreOffice. In a dynamic environment where you want to allow multiple applications, it is advised that an application group be created. This is the most appropriate solution. This option will allow you to group together multiple applications that falls under a common category, such as business systems or office-related applications. By grouping them into an application group, you can apply consistent security policies to all the applications in the group without needing to manually manage each individual application. So option B is the most likely case where the administrator can configure the firewall to allow multiple applications in a dynamic environment that users want to use their own Office applications. Question 6. Which interface does not require a MAC or IP address? A. Virtual wire. B. Layer 3. C. Layer 2. D. Loopback. A virtual wire interface on a Palo Alto network firewall does not need a MAC or IP address because it functions as a transparent layer 1 interface. It essentially acts as a bump in the wire, meaning that it passes traffic between two physical interfaces without modifying the traffic. A layer 3 interface uses an IP address to facilitate routing and to assign the device to a specific subnet for communication with other devices at the IP layer. A layer 2 interface requires a MAC address to handle data link layer functions like forwarding traffic within the same network segment, while a loopback interface requires an IP address, and this is often used for management and diagnostics. It also has a virtual MAC address associated with it, and while it is not purely transparent, it is used for testing or ensuring device availability. So the interface that doesn't require a MAC or IP address is the virtual wire interface. Question 7. Recently, changes were made to the firewall to optimize the policies, and the security team wants to see if those changes are helping. What is the quickest way to reset the hit counter to 0 in all the security policy rules? A. At the CLI, enter the command reset rules and press enter. B. Highlight a rule and use the reset rule hit counter, selected rules for each rule. C. Reboot the firewall. D. use the reset rule hit counter and then select the all rules option. In option A, this command does not exist in the CLI for resetting rule hit counters, so that is out of it. In option B, doing this will reset the hit counter for individual rules, but doing it for each rule will be so time consuming compared to resetting all the rules at once. Rebooting the firewall does not reset the hit counters for security policy rules, and it would disrupt network operations, so you definitely want to avoid doing this. In option D, the reset rule hit counter and selecting all rules option is the quickest and most efficient way to reset the hit counters for all the security policies at once. This option is designed to reset hit counters in bulk, thereby allowing the security team to track new hits on each rule after recent changes were made. So our answer is option D. Question 8. How many zones can an interface be assigned with a Palo Alto Networks firewall? A. 2, B. 3, C. 4, D. 1. An interface can only belong to one zone and not two. 3 zones are not possible for a single interface. On a Palo Alto Networks firewall, an interface can only be assigned to one zone at a time. Zones are used to define network security boundaries and to group interfaces based on their function. So we have the internal interface, we have the external zone, we have the DMZ zone. Each interface, whether it's a physical interface or a virtual interface, must belong to exactly one zone to apply security policies between the different zones. So our answer is option D. An interface can be assigned to one zone at a time with a Palo Alto Networks firewall. Question 9. Which license must an administrator acquire prior to downloading antivirus updates for use with the firewall? A. Threat prevention. B. Wildfire. C. Antivirus. D. URL filtering. The threat prevention license includes antivirus, anti-spyware, and vulnerability protection. This license is required for downloading and applying antivirus updates on a firewall. Wildfire license is used for advanced malware analysis and detection in a sandbox environment, but it is separate from basic antivirus updates. In option C, while the antivirus option might seem correct, there is not a separate antivirus license. The antivirus updates all fall under the threat prevention license. The URL filtering license is used for categorizing and controlling access to websites, but it is not related to antivirus updates. So our answer here is option A, threat prevention. This license enables a firewall to receive updates that helps to protect against known threats, including viruses. Question 10. Which administrator type provides more granular options to determine what the administrator can view and modify when creating an administrator account? A. Root. B. Dynamic. C. Role-based. D. Super user. Root is not an option in Palo Alto Networks for creating administrator type. In option B, while this may sound like a flexible option, the dynamic option does not refer to a specific administrator type in Palo Alto OS with granular permission settings. The role-based administrator type allows for granular control over what an administrator can view and modify. With a role-based administrator account, specific roles can be assigned to limit or allow access to particular areas and functions of the firewall, thereby providing a fine-tuned control over administrative privileges. For option D, a super user has unrestricted access to the entire system, and this is not granular. Super users can view and modify all settings without limitations, but based on the question, this is not what we want. So the best option is option C, the role-based administrator type. Question 11. Which statement is true regarding a best practice assessment? A. The BPA tool can be run only on firewalls. B. It provides a percentage of adoption for each assessment area. C. The assessments guided by an experienced sales engineer helps determine the areas of greatest risk where you should focus prevention activities. D. It provides a set of questionnaires that help uncover security risk prevention gaps across all areas of network and security architecture. For this, we'll be going with option D. A best practice assessment is a tool provided by Palo Alto Networks to help organizations identify security risks and gaps across various aspects of their network and security architecture. It involves a set of questionnaires designed to uncover areas where security practices may not align with recommended best practices. So, out of the options, option D is the statement that is true regarding a best practice assessment. Question 12. Employees are shown an application block page when they try to access YouTube. Which security policy is blocking the YouTube application? A. Interzone default. B. Deny Google. C. Allowed security services. D. Interzone default. If we look at the screenshots of the Palo Alto networks that we have here, we will see that the Interzone default applies here. It is a predefined security rule in Palo Alto network firewalls that blocks all traffic between different zones. If we look at the screenshots we have, we can see the Interzone default displayed at the bottom of the security rule base, and it can be only overridden by a user-defined rule. So in this case, the Interzone default rule has a deny action and applies to any traffic that does not match any other rule here. So our answer here is option D, the Interzone default. Question 13. Which administrator type utilizes predefined roles for a local administrator account? A. Super user. B. Role-based. C. Dynamic. D. Device administrator. Like we've explained before, a super user has full access to all system features and settings, including administrative tasks. It is a type of privilege account, but it is not based on predefined rules. Option B is the most likely answer because in role-based administrator management, predefined roles are assigned to a local administrator account based on their specific responsibility and permissions. This approach will ensure that each administrator has only the necessary privileges to perform their task based on the role they are assigned. A dynamic administrator refers to accounts that can change their permissions and roles dynamically based on certain conditions and requirements. The device administrator role refers to administrators responsible for managing the device itself. So this could be a firewall or a router, but it doesn't specifically focus on utilizing predefined roles for local administrators. So our answer here is option B. The predefined roles are used to control access and provide granular control over what different administrators can and cannot do. Question 14. Which two security profile types can be attached to a security policy? For this, we'll be choosing two answers. A. Antivirus. B. DDoS protection. C. Threats. D. Vulnerability. In Palo Alto Networks Firewall, you can attach security profiles to a security policy to inspect traffic for various types of threats and also provide additional security. The two security profile types that can be attached to a security policy are option A and option C. The antivirus profile type is used to detect and block viruses, malware, and other types of malicious software in the network traffic, while the threat profile is used to detect and block a wide range of threats such as spyware, exploits, and other security vulnerabilities by leveraging signature-based detection. The other options are incorrect. DDoS protection is not a type of security profile that is attached directly to a security policy. And vulnerability protection is a feature that focuses on identifying and mitigating vulnerabilities within network traffic. Question 15. To use Active Directory to authenticate administrators, which server profile is required in the authentication profile? A. Domain controller. B. TACAX Plus. C. LDAP. D. Radius. While the domain controller is part of the Active Directory infrastructure, it is not a server type profile in the authentication profile settings. TACAX Plus is a separate authentication protocol that is used for centralized authentication and authorization, but it is not specific to Active Directory. To authenticate users using Active Directory, an LDAP server profile is typically required in the authentication profile. LDAP, or Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, is a protocol that is used to access and manage directory information, including Active Directory. So this makes it suitable for integrating Active Directory with the firewall for authentication purposes. Radius is another authentication protocol, but LDAP is typically used for direct Active Directory integration, whereas Radius would require additional configuration, and it is not as directly tied to Active Directory as LDAP. So with that, we'll be going with option C. Question 15. Which option shows the attributes that are selectable when setting up application filters? A. Category, subcategory, technology, and characteristic. B. Category, subcategory, technology, risk, and characteristic. C. Name, category, technology, risk, and characteristic. D. Category, subcategory, risk, standard ports, and technology. For this, we'll be going with option B. When setting up application filters on a Palo Alto Networks firewall, you can select the following attributes to define the filter. You can select category. This is the general classification of the application, so it can be a business system or multimedia. The subcategory is a more specific classification within the category, so this could be like, for instance, office programs within business systems. The technology option is the underlying technology that is used by the application, for instance, SSL or HTTP. Risk is the potential security risk level associated with the application, and this could be high, medium, or low. Characteristic defines or describes the unique traits of the application, such as whether it requires a session or if it is peer-to-peer. So this attributes helps to define and filter applications effectively in dynamic environments based on different factors like risk, technology, or behavior. Question 17. Which interface type is used to monitor traffic and cannot be used to perform traffic shaping? A. Layer 2. B. TAP. C. Layer 3. D. Virtual wire. A Layer 2 interface can perform traffic shaping because it is part of the network's data link layer, and it can also be involved in the transmission of traffic between devices. It can enforce security policies and potentially shape traffic based on configured rules. A TAP interface, on the other hand, is used primarily for monitoring traffic without participating in traffic forwarding or manipulation. It allows the firewall to passively observe the traffic flowing through the network, and it provides visibility without affecting the traffic. So since a TAP interface doesn't modify or interact with the traffic, it cannot be used to perform traffic shaping, as traffic shaping requires active participation in the flow of traffic. Layer 3 interface operates at the network layer and helps to route traffic. It can also perform traffic shaping based on IP level policies and routing decisions. A virtual wire interface is used to bridge two network segments transparently. It can pass traffic between interfaces without changing the layer of traffic, and it can also be used for traffic shaping in certain configurations. Now the question is asking which of these interfaces is used to monitor traffic and cannot be used to perform traffic shaping. So that is option B, the tap interface. Question 18. Choose the option that correctly completes this statement. A security profile can block or allow traffic A. on either the data plane or the management plane. B. after it is matched by a security policy rule that allows traffic. C. before it is matched to a security policy rule. D. after it is matched to a security policy rule that allows or blocks traffic. A security profile is applied to traffic after it has been matched by a security policy rule that allows the traffic. Security profiles such as antivirus, anti-spyware, or URL filtering are used to inspect allowed traffic for threats and to enforce additional restrictions. So if a security policy rule blocks traffic, that traffic will not reach the security profile stage because it is already denied by the rule. So option B is the option that best completes the statement. A security profile can block or allow traffic after it is matched by a security policy rule that allows traffic. Question 19. Which type of security policy rule would match traffic flowing between the inside zone and outside zone, within the inside zone and within the outside zone? A. Global. B. Intrazone. C. Interzone. D. Universal. A global security policy is a type of rule that is not tied to any specific zone. So it applies settings across the entire system and it is not used for matching traffic between specific zones. The intrazone rule match traffic that flows within the same zone, such as traffic between two devices in the inside zone or within the outside zone. So this rule is not relevant for traffic between different zones. The security policy rule of the type interzone is used to match traffic between different zones, such as between the inside zone and the outside zone. While the universal in option D is not a recognized type of security policy rule in Palo Alto Networks Firewall. So we'll be going with option C, the interzone security policy. The interzone rule rules are applied to traffic flowing between two distinct zones, such as inside to outside or DMZ to inside. These rules control the interaction and security policy enforcement between these zones. Question 20. Given the cyber attack lifecycle diagram, identify the stage in which the attacker can run malicious code against a targeted machine. A. Exploitation. B. Installation. C. Reconnaissance. D. Act on objective. In the exploitation stage of an attack, the attacker executes malicious code against a targeted machine, often taking advantage of a vulnerability in the system. This stage is where the attacker actively exploits weaknesses in the system to gain access or escalate privileges. Looking at the other options, in the installation stage, this involves the attacker installing malware or other tools on the targeted machine. The reconnaissance stage is the initial phase where the attacker gathers information about the target, such as scanning for vulnerabilities and discovering details about the system. While the act on objective phase is where the attacker accomplishes their goals. So with respect to the question, the exploitation stage is where the attacker executes the malicious code against the targeted machine. This brings us to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and share, and also hit the subscribe button so that you'll be notified when our next informative video will drop. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.